Everybody, Invisiblekatana here with my review for My Hero Academia 2 Heroes. Saw this on Saturday, which was actually my birthday, so that was cool. I was excited to see this because, of course, with normal anime movie releases here in the States, we get like 2 days for that stuff, and it blew up. Like, it made so much money, they added 2 more days, so I was able to see it on my birthday. And I really enjoyed the movie. Like, I heard it was good. I heard, some of my friends watched the show, so they saw the movie and they liked it. And I thought it was really fun. And it was just as good as the show. And that's one thing that I noticed, like watching, I was like, man, I've always really enjoyed the writing for My Hero Academia. Like, I've always loved watching that show just for how well I thought the characters get developed and how they stick to, they stick to the characters that they are. Like, there's never a deviation. It always fits perfectly. I've always loved the writing for that show, which I would assume extends, from the manga, of course. But watching the movie, it was definitely fun. It made perfect sense, the way they tie it into the story and everything. And it's just before like the current, like basically like the last, I think it was the last 4 or 5 episodes of the current season, or I guess technically the last season since it just ended. And so, I thought they did that really well. They have, of course, the special episode that premiered this most recent season where they did like full on plug. It was like, this is what happened, and then they left and went into the movie. But I enjoyed it. I thought it was really fun, definitely funny. Like, I love the comedy in this. How they just had the most hilarious excuses for everyone being on the island. I thought that was so funny, and they didn't even bother with like. I think it was like 3 of the characters. Like, they were just like 2 people were eating, and then 2 other people were just walking, and it was just like we didn't even get an explanation for why they were on the island. It was just like they're just there just to show all just to show the whole class off. It was like, here's these characters, here's those characters. They're just there, and that's pretty much it. So I thought that was super funny. Like, they just didn't even bother with some of the people, but everyone had an excuse to be there. It's like, yeah, we're applying for jobs. Bakugo winning the tournament, that's why he got there. So of course he had his +1. And it was just really funny watching that kind of play out and stuff. So enjoyed that. I like what they did with All Might. That was probably my favorite thing about the movie, is because, of course, where it takes place in the timeline, I was like, okay, this is going to be, All Might having, them doing the natural thing of the series, actually, and passing on the torch to Deku. And they don't, they do that, of course, but they actually had All Might fight in this movie, and I was like, that was super cool, because I thought it was done, after, like, the giant moment from the series. I was like, okay, he's gonna be in it, of course, and they have the whole point of him be like, this is gonna be exhausting, having to, keep my my bulk form up. And I was like, okay, that's cool, but of course he won't actually be fighting. And he fights at the end, and I was like, that's super sweet, because I just assumed it was gonna just be, Deku fighting. Plus, they gave him like the gauntlet so he could use his fists again. I was like, well, that's super awesome, because I thought they were gonna have him. I would have loved it personally if they did have him do both, but they stuck with the fist and the gauntlet, which had a really sweet design. It's very simple, but I was like, that's actually a really cool design where it's like wrapped around like bandages, but it's like a metal gauntlet. So I thought that looked super cool, simple design, but it looked really sweet to me. And just the action for it was great. Of course, with it being the movie, they, any anime movie is just like 110% animation. And they always do that, for My Hero. They, every couple episodes we get those epic fight sequences. So they did it again for the movie, and it was great. And it lasted way longer than I thought, that ending fight. I was like, okay, they did it. And then it was like, nope, surprise, surprise. The ultimate villain of the series is actually involved as well, because it turns out All For One actually knew what was happening, so he gave this dude other powers. And I was like, well, that changes the game. And so we got like a second and a third stage to the actual fight, where he has like the cap on, so he's got enhanced abilities, plus extra abilities. And I was like, well, that's super cool. So we got just a bunch of insane animation, and it was just a fun ending fight sequence. Definitely fun watching them like go up the tower, and it's jumping through the different battles for the characters. So I loved all the action. All the writing, of course, as always, was really well done. And it was cool to see some extra little stuff for All Might and his time, being in the States and stuff like that. So that was pretty cool. Seeing his eyes is always weird, but, that's just the thing. When he's young, it's, you actually see his whole face, and you see his eyes. So it was still weird the whole time watching. I was like, still weirds me out a little bit, but then I try not to think too much on it when I see, when he's got the sunken in eyes. I try not to think too much on that either, just because that looks weird too. But really enjoyed the movie. Thought the animation was great. Comedy was good. Story itself, simple, contained. They literally left and went to an island, which that's basically every anime movie. They always leave and go somewhere else. I think the only one that didn't do that may have been like the first Bleach movie. I think he was technically still in his hometown. Every other anime movie I watch, they always like, well, we're gonna go like way off here, this other country, continent. we might time travel in some cases. Like Naruto's done it all. He's been in a prison. He's time traveled. Everything has been in Naruto. So I'm just so used to everyone just being like, "Yep, we're different planet, different this, different that." So they did that floating city with scientists and stuff, but it was a really good movie. I definitely enjoyed it. Just like watching the show, the music swells in. They have the emotional beats where it's the different songs and everything kicks in perfectly when the action kicks out. Have the normal combat spiel, all that good stuff. But all in all, it was definitely an entertaining movie. So I was glad I got to see it. It was just as fun as watching the series, just seeing it on the big screen, and it was definitely entertaining. Like, I'm glad I got to see it. I would highly recommend it for anyone who, of course, is a fan of the show. They do a good job for people who, I think they did this where it's like, okay, probably going to be a lot of parents taking their kids. We'll just throw in a lot. So admittedly, there was like, I want to say it was probably like 10 minutes of the movie was like recap and stuff, where it's like literally the first two episodes of the series were like recapped in the beginning of the movie. And I was like, okay, we got this, got that. All right, I don't need to see all this stuff. And it was like about 10, maybe even 15 minutes if you count like some of the flashbacks they have later on. There's quite a few moments where I was like, yep, this is just all stuff I've seen from the show. So there's about 15, maybe 10 to 15 good minutes where it legitimately was just like recap, just here's actual old episodes. But that's probably for people who are, like I said, parents taking their kids, or it's like, I don't know what's happening here. So they give them, recap of the story, Midoriya and all that stuff with All Might. So I was like, okay, it's, it fits. But it was just like, with it being the movie, it was just like, we're almost 4 seasons in, and we, first movie. So I felt like it was kind of weird that they had so much recap in it, but it didn't bug me. Like, they did a lot early on, and then they show like a little bit, later on, like when Deku was training with All Might on the beach and stuff. But ultimately, it wasn't too much in the movie. It was just something that I noticed, like, especially in the beginning, because they showed, it felt like I was watching like the beginning of the series, because every episode is, Deku talking about like, this is how I become, the greatest hero and stuff. So I felt like I was literally watching, the opening, and of course that led into like the title card and everything. But loved the movie, had a really good time with it. Of course, would love to know what you guys thought about this. I'm sure there's going to be another My Hero Academia movie, a few years from now we'll get, the second movie, and who knows what that'll do with them. By that time the characters will have different powers, or, they'll be stronger and whatnot. So who knows how that will end up playing out. Maybe we'll see some of the other characters, come in from the series, other heroes, maybe even other villains will pop up. But really enjoyed this one. It was a nice first run at a movie. I think they did a great job with it. Bakugo showing up, that first scene where he's in the movie is probably one of my favorite parts of the movie, because it was so freaking funny to me how mad he was. So that's one of my favorite parts of that whole movie. But we'd love to know what you guys thought about it. What was your favorite scene, or one of your favorite scenes from the movie? What did you think about the movie as a whole? What would you want to see, going forward into a sequel film and stuff like that? And where would you want it? Obviously don't put spoilers if you're like reading the manga and you're way ahead of everybody, but certain elements that you guys would like to see show up, what would you want to see in like the sequel film, which, like I said, will probably be a few years from now. But we'd love to know what you guys thought about it, so please put your comments down in the comment section below. And of course, thanks for watching.